Alaikum. Welcome back to the Boss Hijabi-Preneur Podcast. We are doing our 24 Laws of PowHer Series, and this is law number 8. So this is nurturing the power of a wealthy womb and how to build a thriving business through peri-menopause and menopause. So today's episode is sponsored by PowHer 2025. We will have a very special guest in a moment, and I will introduce her, inshallah. So PowHer is where faith-driven women entrepreneurs come together to elevate their businesses and dive into topics like halal investing, business development, and wealth creation. So if you want to connect with like-minded women and level up, you can go ahead and visit www.halimah.com and we'll take care of you. So we'll share everything with you. You'll be able to learn more and grab your tickets there. And if you're ever interested in sponsoring an episode, you have a business and you would like us to highlight your business on that particular episode, you can either DM us on Instagram or you can email us at hello@halimahdeoliveira.com, and we'll be happy to talk about how we can get you scheduled and sponsor one of our segments, inshallah. So I talked on a recent live that I was going through peri-menopause. So it's been happening with me for a while, right? And I asked for some tips on things I could eat and other resources to navigate through this process. And you ladies did not disappoint. You guys gave me everything from yoni steaming. You gave me supplements that I could take, different podcasts and books and things that I could listen to. And my goal is to help other women thrive in entrepreneurship. And we're talking about peri-menopause. However, it's something that can positively or negatively or both impact us inside of our business. So I wanted to have this conversation. So inshallah, today I'm sitting down with Chantal Blake. She is the author of Peaceful Periods. And we're going to talk about something, that we need to address. We're going to talk about this topic here that we don't hear often enough. I know when I was doing the research for this episode, I was like, where's the information on this? And I was surprised to see so much of the information was written by men. While it's helpful that, they are sharing the information, it just comes across differently coming from a woman. So inshallah, that is what we're going to be focusing on today. And we're going to focus specifically on how peri-menopause affects us in our business. So we'll be covering how womb wellness can influence your wealth, the effects of hormonal changes on business performance, practical strategies to balance health and business, and building resilience and shifting your mindset during menopause, peri-menopause, and we'll also chat about some preventative measures we can take before and during our menstrual cycle. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome our guest, Chantal, on. At honor your womb, so that honored womb, excuse me. So join her at honored womb, so that you can be following her. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum
Listen,
assalam
are
wa
we
rahmatullahi wa
or what?
barakatuh.
What's
I know
going
I was
on?
saying the same thing. I know you're a fashionista, so I had to, put myself together. My New York sister.
Listen, mashallah, I'm so happy to have you on. So, unbeknownst to
Fine.
you, we have been talking about you in one of my communities of women. And we're like, oh, we've got to have a
Mm,
chat with her. So, when I did the
mm.
live and I was talking about, I was sweating up a storm, I think, on that live too. Like, I was really going through it. I was probably
You
having
was
a
feeling.
hot flash. It was wild. I had to turn my camera off. It was subhanAllah.
Mm,
So it was so timely that not only did you comment in the comments, but then you also reached out to me later. And then I was like, yeah, I would love to, talk about this, because we had talked about it in Boss Hijabi Society. We talked about like,
mm,
how, our menstrual cycle, how it may affect us in different ways. And one of the things that I was talking about is I was talking about how fatigue, I was talking about all of the things that come with it. But of course, you're not thinking about it, right? So
mm.
you're just going and you're just saying, oh well, I guess I'm slacking, right? And then you just trying to push through. And then from the conversation that we had on the live, I was due for an annual anyway, so I scheduled an annual with my OBGYN, which led to me scheduling an appointment with my general practitioner as well. And listen, the last however long that's been, I think it's been a little bit over a month, maybe like 2 months. I have done everything and made so many different changes. A lot of the suggestions
Mm,
that you guys gave me, they just mirrored what my doctor was saying, and just some of the things that I've read. So I'm interested in getting in today's conversation. One of the things that I'm very transparent about is the things that are going on with me, being able to share it with other women. Because yes, my focus is on getting your business together, sales and marketing, but there are so many things as women that go into that, of us even just showing up,
mm,
in a certain way in our business. So without further ado, everybody,
mm.
this is our sister, Chantal Blake. I'm so happy to have her on. Inshallah, one of the things that I wanted to talk about, so I just shared one of, just my experiences so far with perimenopause. And I guess in the conversation, we'll get into how long I've been going through it, because it didn't just start just now. I just started paying attention to it now. But anyway, and so I would love for you to share your professional insight. So give us in just a few short sentences how perimenopause and menopause can impact women entrepreneurs, and why it's crucial to address this right now.
When we're younger, right, when we're in our more peak reproductive years, we have that powerhouse, that engine that is estrogen that's able to push us, get us to like power through, even if we're functioning with very little rest or different stresses and resources that are challenged. Estrogen can just push through, right? When people always ask, how do new mothers survive with so little sleep? Estrogen, right? That's kind of like the short answer. And then the reality is that we can't be in our peak reproductive years forever. We have to start to cycle down. It's not sustainable for us to be reproducing, right, until our elder years. And so with that, our ovaries, our ovarian function is starting to decline, and how much estrogen we make starts to decline. And that can be really frustrating if you're accustomed to doing everything, overcompensating. When your team is slacking, you just push through. So it's a time of reckoning where you have to realize, like, I don't have the capacity. I'm literally not as stress tolerant as I once was. And I have to build a successful team. I have to outsource, and I have to be super clear that I'm doing what are the high priority tasks that are necessary of me, not filling in the gaps for those who are not showing up.
That's really good, because that speaks to the difference between working in your business and working on your business, and
Mhm.
how timely, the more mature we become, we begin to work on our business versus in our business. And it goes hand in hand. I can truly attest, and it's happened more in 2024 than in previous years. But I
Mhm.
would say I've been going through perimenopause probably about for the last 4 or 5 years, because I noticed a shift in my menstrual cycle. I'm now more days. I went from 3 days to 5 days, and now I'm at seven, right? So I
Mhm.
noticed that shift. And, I know some people, it can go either way. So you would know this better, but some people have a reduction in days. Mine has increased. I even went a couple of times. Last year was when I noticed, but again, not paying attention to it, right? And just powering through, where I was getting a period twice a month. And
Mhm.
then I remember reading the hadith, like, okay, is this a period? Which one is the period? I remember going over that, because, I remember the hadith, and I was like, you know what, let me check to see, because what this looks like and what this looks like, okay, can I still pray? Right. So that was what my focus
Mhm.
was. Should I be praying now or not? So, I looked over that hadith, and I remember that. And that was last year. And then this year was the first year that I've skipped periods. Like, literally,
Mhm.
this was the first year that I almost fasted a full
Mhm.
Ramadan. So, and so that was a shift as well. And then I didn't get it until like last month. Last month it came
Mhm.
back. So uh, right at the beginning of Ramadan, I got it. And then after that, I didn't get it. So I haven't gotten
Mhm.
it. I hadn't gotten it since like the first uh, couple of days of Ramadan. And then last month it
Mhm.
came back. So that was when I was like, that's when we did the live. I was like, okay, this is not normal. So what are we doing over here?
Mhm. And that's another challenge. You don't have that rhythm. For some of us, we've grown accustomed to the cycle of our rhythm. There's certain things we do when we're menstruating. Maybe we slow down, when maybe we plan some more like CEO days, plan some more resting, some more reflection. And when you're not cycling, sometimes that gets frustrating too, because it feels like you're kind of looking for another rhythm to sync with. So I find that a lot of our perimenopausal sisters are like, yeah, where's my cycle? Like I feel so disoriented because that cycle can be such a orientating like rhythm for us. So I think that's another challenge that we have to be really conscious how we're building in all the different stages of our self-care, right? Our need to plan, our need to execute, our need to like process, analyze, as well as our need to rest, because you won't have your period kind of tugging like, okay, yeah, it's slow down time, it's rest time. So we have to be super intentional about planning rest.
I agree, because I shared this. We were laughing about it in the Boss Hijabi community. We were laughing about it because I was saying like I was looking forward to, like you said, that downtime. So
Mhm,
during prayer time, so I structure my day around prayer to begin with, right? So I have downtime, but it's downtime so I can pray, right? But then, when I have my cycle, then I might take a nap, right? That after Zohar nap, like, is a real thing for me in my, older years. And I take that very seriously, especially if I teach class. If it's a day I teach class, I
mhm,
have to take that nap, or I'm not good from, working in the morning and then teaching that class in the evening. It's like,
mhm,
we talk about brain fog, you talk about, just not oriented at all, like all over the place.
mhm,
So that nap is important. And when I didn't get it, I was like, wait a minute, I've been going
mhm,
since Ramadan. And I'm the type of person that if, I'm praying, but then if, I don't have, like I said, my cycle is downtime, I may paint my nails. Like, there's different self-care things that you do at that
yeah,
time that you
yeah,
can't do at other times. And so it's like, wait a minute, I didn't get to do that. And that's what made me notice, like,
mhm,
oh Lord, what is going on? Right. And so
mhm,
then that's when we did the live, and then I was just talking about, just thinking about some of the things. And so I'm going to share really quickly, just some of the symptoms that I've had, and I'm gonna give my age. I'm not shy about this. So I'm 47. My last child I birthed when I was 29. So and that there's a shift there too when you have a baby too. So I think we should talk about that as
mhm,
well. But some of my symptoms: irregular periods, difficulty sleeping. There have been some skin changes. So I've developed like acne out of nowhere. Like, where did it come
mhm,
from? Irritability and mood changes. I'm more like abrupt, like hurry up and get to the point type thing.
mhm,
I think we noticed that with, our more mature relatives. I'm thinking of
mhm,
my grandmother right now, like, and now I understand her like 100%. She's my favorite person anyway, but I 100% understand her. So the mood changes, slow metabolism. So I've
mhm,
put on some weight as a result. The brain fog. I think I said night sweats, hot flashes, but
mhm,
only on my face. So it's happening on my
mhm,
face and on the top of my head. Before,
mhm.
like you sweat. Yeah, it's so interesting. Like,
Yeah.
I'm an athlete, so I, run. I run about 3 miles a day. I could literally go outside in a hijab and you wouldn't know that I ran. So
Mm,
this year though, like, I was on a live. I was sitting still, and I started to sweat from my
mm,
head, my hijab. Like, you could see it, it was coming through my hijab. And I wear it on the scarf, by the way, and
mm.
it was coming from my face. I was like,
Aw,
what is this?
yeah,
Live. So I was like, look,
yeah,
y'all, it is what it is. Okay.
yeah,
The achy joints,
mhm,
that's a difference for me because I'm like, why is this hurting? Right. Chronic fatigue. So I have developed that where I feel so tired and so sluggish. I push through, but I'm tired.
mhm,
Like, I'm not even gonna lie, tired. And something that I noticed probably in the last couple of months is headaches. So I used to get
mhm,
them when I was young. When I was like in my 20s, I used to get a lot of headaches,
mhm,
migraines. And after I had my son, haven't had a migraine headache is very rare. And then
mhm,
last couple of months, headaches.
mhm,
So just speaking to that, what these are some of them, but what other specific challenges might women face in their business due to these hormonal changes that are going on through or during perimenopause and menopause? And how do you think these challenges affect their overall business performance and productivity? So I gave, my personal example, but you're the expert.
mhm.
So what are you seeing with some of the women that are at this stage?
Well, yeah, you definitely are feeling the full range. You've covered. We got some cognitive stuff, musculoskeletal, the period changes. So definitely you definitely painted a picture of what's really common for women to experience. Just the other side of 40, things are starting to change and shift. And I think the biggest frustration, especially in our businesses, when we can't access our energy in the same way. So when you talked about that fatigue, and being able to push through, but still being really, really tired, that is a challenge, right? You want to be able to just haul your way through, but it's not always a possibility. And we do have to really shore up our self-care differently, managing our rest, because ultimately this is a time we're shifting to a time where we're not as resilient towards stress. And so that means we have to figure out how can I reduce stress on all fronts. And so that could look like your sleep habits or just your downtime, what nourishes you, what practices need to happen. For some people, it might be certain kind of supplement support or even mineral support. Magnesium deficiency tends to be a common cause of headaches and sleep issues, especially if that's paired with like constipation and leg pain. Sometimes that presentation altogether can tell us magnesium is a bit low. So needing to like really build up those mineral reserves. So really supplementing minerals tends to be really supportive at this time for those particular issues, sleep and headaches. And then also what can be really challenging for your business is, like you said, that hurry up, let's get to the point. So one thing that estrogen does is it kind of attunes us to the collective. How are we doing as a collective? And how can I be empathetic to different views and different perspectives? It's a very group collective kind of hormone. So that's why they often say if you need to do some team building, brainstorming as a collective to be able to really hear and process other people's perspectives, a great time to do that is when our estrogen levels are higher. Well, as we're getting older, estrogen levels are not going to get that high anymore. So we might come across as a little bit short, a little bit curt, a little bit impatient. And so really naming that and having a team working with folks that really empathize with, okay, I understand that we need to get to the point that it's not personal, but there is a shift where they often say kind of approaching menopause is like taking a truth-telling serum, that it's not as easy to sugarcoat. It's not as easy to talk around the topic. It's like I need to get to it and now. And that might be a difficult communication style to adapt to. So figuring out ways to let your team know where you're at, what you're going through, and then also figure out what do you need so that you're bringing as much of your energy as possible to the table. Do you need to take that nap before you step into that meeting? Do you need to take that walk? What is your self-care going to look like? Because you can't go in on like a low tank of energy to begin with and then expect to be able to kind of bring forth that collective care, concern, and all those communicative skills. So I would say definitely planning a lot of alone time is very key at this stage, a lot of that reflective time. So it doesn't just come across as like, I have no patience for anyone. You do have to spend a bit more time in some solitude, some introspection, and time and rest. That's just the nature of what it is, and that's not always a bad thing. And we need to really be conscious of how we talk about needing more rest, not tolerating as much stress, because it's not a deficiency, it's an opportunity.
I love that. I speak a lot about, anything that's negative being an area of opportunity, whether it's to improve or like you said, whether it's an opportunity to communicate. And I'm thinking of disc style. So you do a lot of this in entrepreneurship, learning what your, character, your trait is. And when I'm in the business setting, I'm high D, low I. So what that means is direct to the point. So I'm that anyway. So, but I have that low I is where it balances me out. And then when
Mm.
I'm outside of, being in a conference or, like even speaking on this live, I'm high I, low D. meaning that I'm focused on the person, focused on the individual. So I know this about myself, and I agree with you 1,000%. So I was laughing, because I agree, and I feel like that's a lot of us women, where we are high I, low D in most environments as we're aging. It's like high D, low I, like hurry up and get to the point. And it's also, we may be experiencing something while we're even sitting there, right? So like I
Mm-hmm.
said, like I was on that live, I was sweating profusely, and I want to pay attention, but at the same time, I'm like, why am I sitting here? I'm not moving. The air is
Mm-hmm.
on. What is happening right now? And not being able to focus and pay attention. And I wanted to share this quick. I did some research in doing this, and I just looked at how is perimenopause or menopause impacting women at work? How is it impacting larger businesses? And this statistic was out there, and I wanted to share it. The broader impact of menopause on business productivity and healthcare costs. The Mayo Clinic estimates the cost of worker productivity losses due to menopausal symptoms to be about $1.8 billion, and related healthcare costs total over $24 billion. Like I just even think about, I did, 2 doctor's appointments within a month span, and I have another one coming up on Monday. And this second one that's coming up on Monday is to talk more about treatment. So if, there are any treatments that, I'm going to need as a result of all the information that I found out. So that's the third appointment. But, so many things came up. You talked about magnesium, you talked about different deficiencies. They did everything. Just thinking about the cost of that, right? So thinking about, what that looks like for my insurance, what I've paid, not only, my premiums, but also any out-of-pocket expenses, and thinking about those different things coming into play. And so, I'm a lot about preventative, right? So, okay, and I looked at, I believe it was one of the lives that you did, and it was basically, how did you approach your period? And I think how we approach our period has a lot to do with how we deal with it later on. Again,
Mm-hmm.
shameless share, and I'm sharing shamelessly in the effort, and in the hopes of helping someone else. My period was like this secret society type thing, like don't talk about it, like here's a pad, go figure it out. Like i
Mm-hmm.
didn't i didn't even learn how to put on a pad. I had to figure it out myself. And thank God I'm the oldest girl, because I was able to teach my 3 sisters, or else they would not have been celebrated, period, during that time either. So, I when I saw that, I was like, it just, you healed like the 12-year-old Halimah, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember it, like I was at school, and girl, I loved me some pink back then. And I'm not talking about like a hot pink. I'm talking about like a light pink. I don't have anything like that, but light pink. And long, abaya type dress. My dress was pink, my shirt was pink, my hijab was pink, and my pants were pink, and my shoes were like this burgundy. I remember the day. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, studious Halima sat in the front of the class, and her period came. Imagine. And I got up, and everyone was just like, you could hear the gasp, but no one wanted to be the one to tell me, like, hey girl, something. So I went to school with my brother. My brother and I were born the same year, so we went to school together. So he was in my class, so they told my brother, who sat on the other side of the classroom, and then he was the one who came over to me, and he was like, and I went home. I didn't go back to
Okay.
class. I left my book bag. My brother got my book bag for me, but I went home. But in going home, there was no explanation. Like, this is how you put a pad on. This is, and no shame to my mom. Like, that's
Mm-hmm.
probably how she, how it came to her as well. Like,
Yeah.
but it was this embarrassing thing. Like even to buy pads was like this embarrassing thing. Like you take
Mm-hmm.
a dark bag with you, and you put the pads in your bag, don't show anybody, you know. So yeah, it was I think I would love to talk about that. Also
Yeah.
talk about even like the vitamins, right? So you talk
Mm-hmm.
about supplements. So I asked, I crowdsourced for different supplements. And the beautiful thing is that, did the crowdsourcing. I'm very I eat holistically. I eat natural food. I don't like the worst medication that I take right now is a Tylenol. Like
Mm,
I don't want to take medication. If I can get what I need from food, that's how I want to get my vitamins.
mhm,
So it was magnesium, B12, omega-3, ginkgo biloba to handle the brain fog, and then vitamin C for my skin for some of the spots that are now appearing
mhm.
on my skin. So if you could just speak, I know I went all around,
That's all
but I went all
right.
around for it to make sense. I like to share a story and then let's hop to it. So what are
Yeah.
some, yeah, so yeah. So
No, I just love that you shared that backstory because, my parents are Caribbean. So my mom always told me like we didn't talk about a lot of things openly. So my both of my parents are from Jamaica, my grandparents as well. And I've even asked my grandmother about her first period. And again, no preparation, no celebration. And so that drives a big part of what I do and what's on the other side of that thread, right? So they often talk about the red thread. So the fact that we're here because women bleed. And so from our first bleed, there's like this story that connects us to that last bleed and then our daughters and, this ongoing, um, this river of humanity, right? We would not be here if we didn't bleed. And to really frame it in such a celebratory and positive way as something, as opposed to something shameful that we have to hide and not talk about. And so, what happens when there's shame at that starting point, that can definitely carry over into shame as it comes to like approaching what do I need in preparation for marriage? What do I need in preparation for birth and postpartum? And just kind of just making it through as opposed to really pausing at these critical moments and these critical rites of passage and saying, yes, like this is a moment worth celebrating and it means something and it has an imprint on me. And I remember when I was celebrating my daughter's first period, with a community of women, also mothers who have daughters, the elder woman amongst us, she said, what happens to us? Where's our celebration when we go through menopause? Who celebrates us? Who witnesses our rite of passage? And so, again, I think all of that is connected. The more that we can have positive and open conversations about menstruation that can take us through maternity and postpartum and perimenopause and menopause in a much more healthy, collectively shared way. I was talking to a businesswoman recently. She pulled me aside and she was like, I know you got the book for teens, but help us out. We are going through it. And she was sharing what she was feeling, the extreme fatigue, a lot of mood changes and irritability. And as I started, I just listened. I said, yeah, this is what's happening at this time. There's a up leveling that's happening. There's a new role we need to step into, and things are going to shift. And the way we view productivity is going to need to shift. And she said, just you listening is already so healing because the people around me don't get it because you're either not talking about it or you're not experiencing it. And it can feel very isolating. So just to come back to what you were saying about resources and support and supplements, you named a lot of really great things. A lot of times because the quality of our food is not what it used to be, there can be a lot of micronutrient deficiencies. And so really paying attention to trace minerals, supplementing with trace minerals tends to be really helpful, especially when you mention your skin. So overall, we have to be conscious that we're not overburdening our system. We have to be very conscious about the toxins in our environment, being conscious about our foods as well. So anytime the skin is breaking down or having breakouts or acne, definitely giving attention to the liver. How is the liver needing to be supported? So looking at herbs and foods that have an affinity for the liver to help make sure that we're cleansing out our blood really well. Again, think about overall your body is not tolerating stress and stressors as much, and environmental pollutants are also a stressor. So I would add to that foods that are supportive and herbs that are supportive for the liver, and the kidneys are huge. The classic symptoms of perimenopause and menopause are hot flashes, night sweats, and vaginal dryness. And if you connect those three together, there's an underlining what's considered an underlying imbalance that has to do with there being too much heat in the body, right? Drying out the body, overheating the body. And so anytime when you're experiencing heat symptoms, you want to look to the kidneys supporting the kidneys. Herbs and foods that have an affinity for the kidney will have that cooling effect on the body. So that's generally how I approach those kinds of symptoms with clients, is how are we going to support your kidneys here so that they'll naturally cool down and hydrate your body. But then there's also one other piece that's really important for nourishing the kidneys, and it's the practices like rest and joy and pleasure and play that sometimes we think, oh, that's kid stuff, but really bringing that back in, it is something that hydrates the body on a different level, if that makes sense. It's not as tangible as the food, the herb, etc., but it does have an impact on how our kidneys function when we're really nourishing our kidneys overall in an energetic way. And that's often this perspective comes from Eastern medicines, traditional Chinese medicine, etc.
And there's it's prophetic too, I think. We think about, just how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam treated his wives, and just some of the
Mhm,
questions that they asked. The Aisha radiallahu anhas of the world asking about periods and, these different phases, and how he interacted with them. Like, he was very playful with Aisha
mhm,
radiallahu anha, right? And just
mhm,
thinking about that, as you were speaking, that's what I was thinking about. I was thinking about, you talked about joy, and I think about how I interact with my daughter. I think about, when it's that time of the month, like you said, each generation should get better with it,
mhm,
as we move on. And alhamdulillah, I celebrated my daughter, and in turn, if she has a daughter, she will do the same. I showed her long before she, had a period. We had this conversation, and I just talked about how do you care for yourself.
mhm,
When it came time, just celebrating, and we're going shopping, and let's get the different sizes, and this one is for this one, this one is for this one, and then talking, like you said, talking about we talk a lot about comfort foods. Me and
mhm,
my daughter's a foodie. We talk about comfort foods, but then in having comfort foods, which ones are good for you,
mhm.
good for your body, good for this time, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes the comfort foods we like
Mhm.
exacerbate
Yes.
these symptoms. So it's like,
Mhm.
okay, how do we find, the comfort, but also like make sure that it's not causing more issues for you, causing you to,
Yes.
menstruate longer, right? So she,
Mhm.
hers is like 4 or 5 days. So, just having these conversations. I think that that's so important. I even think, like you said, the sister who approached you and just talked about, I know you got the one for the teens, but, what we're talking about over here. And what I was so
Mhm.
excited, in us talking about this, I saw, the book for the teens, Peaceful Periods. And then when I saw that you were coming up with the program, Peaceful, Perimenopause, I was like, okay, yes, right? Because
Mhm.
yeah, I think we're often overlooked, just this
Yeah.
segment overall. So majority of the women who follow me are 35 and older. 35 to 50 is my segment, to be exact. And, we're overlooked in a lot of spaces, right?
Mhm.
And so even in the business field, like, oh, you're getting up there, girl. What are you doing? Like, how are you starting a business now?
Mhm.
Thinking about marriage, a lot of us may be, divorced or widowed at this
Mhm.
age, or, moving through transition, or all of the above, right? So I think that it's important to focus on this segment as well, because how do we transition, and also how do we teach the previous generation? Like, my daughter's 17,
Mhm.
so she's moving into her next phase of life. Again, prophetic. We think about, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to teach our children in phases of the 7 years, right? So she
Mhm.
is, in about 4 years, she'll be in the next phase, right? So
Mhm.
how are we preparing for that? You mentioned, I wanted to share some of these too. So you talked about, these are not tangible. Like, there are some intangible things that we
Mhm.
should be doing, like joy. Also the Dhuhr nap, the after Dhuhr nap, right? Journaling. I'm big on that, and writing
Mhm.
down how I'm feeling. And, especially when I feel like I want my response to be this, but my response right now is this. Like,
Mhm.
sometimes I'm writing down, is this hormone? Like, I'm asking a question in my journal, is this hormonal? What is going on? Because
Mhm.
in my mind, I want to answer it this way, but my mouth, uh, gave a whole different answer, or maybe there was a shrug of the shoulder or two, right? I'm like, well, what's going
Mm,
on? I
mhm,
also yoga. So I was a big yogi when I was younger, probably like the last 3 years. Life has been just a little bit more chaotic in that it's not, the norm, so to speak. A lot of changes, in my family dynamic, and so things are not in order.
mhm,
So, but yoga, I had a yoga practice. I know that helped with my joints. So I did Bikram yoga,
mhm,
which is AKA hot yoga. That helped a lot with my joints. Also brought me joy. There's a sense of community that happens, in that environment. So that is something that, since kind of having this conversation with you, and then just that online conversation, I've gone into therapy and uptick in therapy. Even with my doctor, she was like, you may want to go back, because I used to go every 2 weeks, and then now
mhm,
it's just once a month. She said you may want to go back to that every 2 weeks, where one session is about this, but then the next session is about maybe some of these changes that your body is experiencing, and then walking.
mhm.
So getting out and walking every day, and making it a point to do that. And some days I try to do twice a day. When I don't teach class, I walk before Maghrib as well, just to get the body moving. And it changes, like just inhaling the air uh, changes some of that, it helps with some of the brain fog, and just clears my head, and overall mood. I just feel better.
I
So,
was having this
mhm.
conversation yesterday, I believe. It was this week for sure with a client. And yeah, we were talking about that, those breathing practices, because she was asking, what can I do about the brain fog? And, I said, yeah, you definitely have to have less judgment about your tiredness, right? Instead of being, sometimes we get stuck in judging what's going on and trying to understand why and being frustrated by it instead of just responding to it as it is, like, oh, I'm tired. How can I make space for rest? Or I'm feeling warm right now. What do I need? What's going to be helpful, as opposed to fighting, like, I don't want to feel this way right now, And so like we talked about breathing practices, because that's another thing that's going to be helpful, is just oxygenating your blood better. Oftentimes we don't breathe very well. We don't breathe very deeply. So we were talking about breathing practices that just help us to expand our capacity to really oxygenate better. So we're getting more circulation and oxygenation to our brain. And then you mentioned ginkgo, and there are also some other really helpful herbs that help with focus and memory. If you think of, some of them are like lion's mane, for example, comes to mind. There are reishi, there are different categories of herbs that particularly support cognitive function, brain function. So leaning on them at this time would be really helpful too.
Inshallah, the reishi I've heard of. We've done that with my mom, right? So
Mm,
she has early stages of dementia. So we've
mm,
kind of like tried to help her, in that regard. And that was one of the things that was recommended. So mashallah, that's beautiful, just to have another resource. I don't know why, but we all remember ginkgo biloba. Like even my brother, we were talking about my
hmm.
mom, and he was just like ginkgo biloba, right? Just order it, right? And so we were
Hmm.
talking about that. So that's mashallah. So
It had
um,
a good marketing campaign, because none of us
listen,
forgot that name. None of
and
us
this is
forgot that
back
name.
80s.
I
This
know,
is
right?
this is not even right now. This is back in the 80s, remembering
Yes.
that. Because I'm like, my brother,
Hmm.
what does he know, right? And but he was like, ginkgo biloba. I was like, all right,
Hmm.
we're gonna get on that. Okay.
We got to study their marketing strategy, because that stuck with
Listen,
us decades later.
they killed it, because that's probably about 40 years ago.
Hmm.
A good 35, 40 years ago, that came out. But yeah, so just speaking about that, you're getting a lot of comments here where the women are saying this is so insightful. We have
Hmm.
some that are just saying, that they're, how do you make people understand that you need this shift when you have been the powerhouse go-to person? Can totally relate.
Yeah.
People.
Actually, when you were talking about your experience in the live, I feel like there's an invitation for us to model a completely different type of leadership. So a lot of what we've seen in terms of masculine leadership is this consistency, right? You look the same, you have the same routine every single day, get up the same time, even wear the same clothes, right? To avoid decision fatigue. There's a lot of praise of being static and super consistent. But I think we need to be conscious of how we use consistency or even frame consistency, because we have another opportunity to bring presence into our leadership, to speak to feeling in that present moment. So live or in a meeting and just say, oh, can we just pause for a moment? Like I'm feeling a hot flash right now, and I just give me a moment. I'm gonna get some water, or this meeting is running a bit long for me, and I care about what you have to say, but I don't have the capacity anymore. How about we reschedule this, carry this conversation over online or by email or what have you. So I feel like with this shifting that we're going through, we also have an opportunity to model really authentic and present leadership that says, hey, yes, it may come across as unprofessional that I'm sweating through my hijab, but this is the reality of what's happening right now. And it gives other people the invitation to speak truthfully to what they're experiencing, saying, you know what, I know that this meeting is important, but I just need to step out for a moment to tend to my need, to grab my lunch. I missed lunch today. Like just giving space for people to bring more of their humanity to their work, and without as much judgment that, oh, that's unprofessional because it doesn't fit this kind of cold, static, rigid presentation, if that makes sense.
1,000% does, and I shared this inside of the Boss Hijabi Society a while ago. But I shared how when I first started, everything was team no sleep, and of course, this was coming
Mm-hmm.
from a man, right? And no
Mm-hmm.
shade to men at all, but like you said, this is how they've struck how their structure is, and then we as women are coming into the structure, and we're trying to become something that we were never created to be in the first place, and it's creating this space where we're almost running ourselves down prematurely, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, 7 years ago when I started my company, I was definitely team no sleep. I was working 16-hour days.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, alhamdulillah, I was full time in my business, but I was working 16-hour days. And I still have to pray. I still have to make sure that I get up for Fajr on time. Like, that's not an option for me to be late for Fajr. So that meant that I wasn't getting a full 8 hours of sleep. I was
Mm-hmm.
probably up an hour before Fajr, 30 minutes before Fajr. So I wasn't getting that full sleep. And then some, think about now having to wait for Isha to come, not now, but, upcoming, we'll have to wait for Isha to come in, and thinking about that, like, that's not 8 hours. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
like, thinking about those things, but I was definitely in my masculine, 7 years ago. And, of course, I'm leading these women, and, I'm leading these women like, if you want to get to the bag, like, this is how you have to be to compete. And I have definitely moved into my feminine. First of all, I only work with women, number one. And then number two is, like, one of the things that I talk about is I'm taking a self-care day. Like, I teach class twice a week. There are times where I say, ladies, we're going to move this meeting to another day, because I need that self-care moment. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and the difference is before I would take it when I was at the breaking point. Now I take it when I'm like, okay, I have more forethought in that, okay, I can see where if I keep going, I'm gonna lose it. So let's take care
Mm-hmm.
of this now. Let me take care of this time now. And it's so funny, it's normally around my cycle that
Mm-hmm.
happens. It's also normally around my cycle. And I would love for you to speak to this, where I feel like, and so now that everything is fluctuating, I'm in peri-menopause. I don't know what's going to happen, but still around the time that my normal period would be, I feel a lot of these symptoms. So I
Mm-hmm.
feel a lot of this, like fatigue or needing some time off, or
Mm-hmm.
that different type of thing. It could be totally 100% psychological. It could be hormonal. You could speak to that better.
Very likely hormonal, because there's going to be a period of time where our body is really trying to ovulate every month, but we're just not reaching all of the levels needed to fully ovulate. So there's still going to be some movement for sure. The hormones are not just going from like moving and in a symphony and then it's just flatlining, not at all. So you're still going to feel some cyclicalness. Even if it doesn't peg against an actual bleed, there's still cycles that are happening in your body trying to figure out, are we going to, do we have the resources to ovulate this month? Are we trying? Are we, what are we doing? So I appreciate you for modeling that for the women that you lead to say, hey, we need some self-care time, because sometimes we need women older than us that we look to as leaders to hold that space for us and to set that boundary. And when we see you setting that boundary, we say, you know what, I can do that in my younger business or my less experienced, business, et cetera. So, thank you for naming that and really identifying that shift that you made in your business so that other women see that modeled. How are you planning your self-care and your downtime and not just running yourself into the ground?
Really and truly. And and one of the things that I thought about is, if I can take the time to say, okay, Dohar and Asa specifically, I'm not going to schedule calls. Like, I don't do any of that at those times. At the top of Dohar, at the top of Asa, to like, let's go, right? Like,
Mhm.
even this live, right? We'll be finished by the time Dohar comes
Before it
in.
comes in.
Like, seriously, like,
Boundaries,
so
yes.
boundaries, and it's nothing to do, literally, it's not about you. It is totally about me. Fridays, don't ask me anything on Friday, because guess
Hmm.
what? Self-care
I
day
ain't
number
answering.
one, I'm not, Allah forgive me, I'm not answering you. And I,
Hmm.
again, high I, low D when I'm off. So I want to answer you, because I want you to get the answer that you need, or for you to understand that
Hmm.
I respect the fact that you felt inclined to inbox me. So I want to give it to you, but I can't,
Hmm.
because I know what I want to do, what I want to accomplish on a Friday. I know the state that I want to be in on a Friday.
Hmm.
And I left, my corporate job so that I could have that peace on a Friday.
Hmm.
I don't got to ask nobody's permission. I don't do none of that. So I'll
It's
get
like
to
it's
you.
like when I used to see my mom answering emails over the weekend, and I used to say to her, Mom, I said, my mom was a professor. She just recently retired, and I said, Mom, this isn't life or death. You know what I'm saying? Like, them students can wait until Monday, or even your colleagues can wait. I feel like in this age, there's this urgency that's put upon us because we get all these pings and notifications, and we're mistaking like importance for urgency. Not everything is urgent. And so I'm glad, yeah, like you said, you have your boundaries on when you're available and when you're not. And it's not a reflection of lack of care for the other. You're just caring for yourself and being true to what your needs are,
Yeah.
So I remember seeing my mom working past the like the end of the night, answering emails, responding to students when she was teaching over the weekend. I said, Ma, ain't nobody's paper is that important that it can't wait until, Monday morning or what have you. This is not like ER surgery, life or death situations. And so it really is an opportunity for us to be like, you know what? Um, it's not a reflection of my lack of care or concern if I'm not responding with this kind of urgency, rapid fire response.
Hmm. Yeah, and again, coming from masculine, right? And thinking, and just thinking about, as a woman, the way that you naturally want to respond. Like, my daughter and I, we have recently been having conversations, because she's in her last year of high school, and so she's getting ready to go to college. So now it's this, we've been talking about this all summer, how it's the realization this past summer, she said, was my last real free summer.
Mm-hmm.
Like, after this, it's college, it's, all of the adult things going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I said to her, that's okay. So a lot of our dialogue has been, how do I take care of myself while also ensuring that I'm getting all of my work done, ensuring that I'm answering my professor, now professor. So she's calling,
Mm-hmm.
she's in a college preparatory high school. So now they're calling them professors. They have a syllabus. Like, it hit her
Okay.
like day one. She was like, Ma, what is this?
What is this?
I was like, girl, listen, welcome. I said, but
Welcome.
I'm gonna help you come home. You tell me the thing, and I'll help you through it. But welcome, okay? So, Bismillah,
Mhm.
right? But I'm just thinking about even that, like helping her through, those different type of things, and even helping, women through it. So, to see your
Hmm.
program that's coming up, I know there's like some type of deadline, so I wanted you to cover that. There's a deadline for something. I think it's tomorrow, September 10th. So talk a little bit about that. I would love to know. It's an 8-week coaching program called Peaceful Perimenopause. If
Hmm.
you've enjoyed all of the information today as much as I have, I'm sure that this is going to be absolutely fabulous because it's going to dive deeper. So, if you could tell us a little bit more about the 8-week coaching program, Peaceful Perimenopause, what they can expect, how they can learn more about it and register, inshallah.
Yes. So every fall, I teach a course called Peaceful Periods and Happy Hormones, which is basically the menstrual and hormonal education that we should have had, we could have had, but we didn't. So we're gonna get it now. And I felt really this inspired this year to really focus on our perimenopausal sisters because, like I said, the question comes up a lot. The more that I work with, teens and moms have found me to help for me to help their teens. They're like, well, we need something too, right? And so the vision for this program, it won't be just a course, it'll also be coaching because there's some practical coaching that happens with navigating this stage. But I'm really excited to frame perimenopause differently than the conventional. It's a diagnosis and we need to give you hormones to supplement these low levels. It's not sustainable for us to function in the way that we have in the past. So, holistically, how have other cultures and societies and traditions seen this as a rite of passage? How can we think differently about it? And what is it calling us to? What does perimenopause, what is it trying to bring forth from us and through us as we're entering the next stage of our womanhood, right? So, yes, we had the first period and then we bled every month. And then, maybe for some of us, we became mothers or didn't. But now we're moving into this next level of what our womanhood is going to look like. And I believe it's an initiation into our wise women years. So I'm really excited about being with a group of women who are going through that transition in different stages for sure, and doing like really addressing the practical how to's and support that you need to relieve the discomfort, but also looking at the larger spiritual opportunity that perimenopause is presenting to us. And I'm really excited that some of my beloved teachers are going to be guest teachers in the program as well. So we have a wait list now. The wait list closes tomorrow. So you get access to a free class, The Gifts of Perimenopause and Menopause, when you sign up for the wait list. You'll also get early access to the program and VIP pricing, etc. So if you go to the bio link in Honored Womb, you'll see the waitlist link and you can hop on the waitlist. You'll have access to those bonuses and that free class. And then if you want to join us, we begin October 6th. We'll be meeting every Sunday in October and November.
MashaAllah, beautiful. You heard it here. I don't know if it's first, but you heard it here. So
Alhamdulillah.
October 6th, the program starts. So make sure that you get the early bird so that you get the gift for signing up for the wait list, and then, just the VIP access and probably early bird, pricing for the program. So inshallah, first of all, Chantal, I want to thank you for hopping on. I do have like a couple of more
Mhm.
questions because we had about 5 people ask questions offline. We put like a
Sure.
poll out and asked for
Okay.
questions, and we
Hmm.
chose two questions. So I'm going to answer. I'm going to answer. I'm going to ask you those, inshallah. And then also any additional resources outside of the 8-week coaching program that you may
Hmm.
have, inshallah. So, one of the first questions was, what halal or natural remedies are available for perimenopause symptoms? And I know you gave some of them.
Yes.
If there are any additional, inshallah.
Any specific ones? So the main types of support I would look at are herbs and foods that are going to help you manage stress, as well as herbs that are going to support the kidneys. I mentioned the kidneys a lot because that's a big reason why we experience the symptoms that we can experience, that excess heat that I mentioned. So I would say for managing stress, you want to look at herbs that are considered adaptogens. They basically help your body modulate stress. So like I said, we become less tolerant to stress as we get older and move through this transition. And sometimes these herbs can help us. So ashwagandha would be an example. If you're familiar with tulsi or holy basil, that's another example of an adaptogenic herb. And there's also quite a few in the mushroom family as well. I believe reishi is also considered an adaptogen. I'd have to double check that. But generally, my go-tos are generally the ashwagandha and tulsi that I recommend. And for some people, rhodiola is really supportive as well in managing stress and anxiety. And then obviously, the whole disclaimer, consult with your, whoever you consult with, whichever practitioner. It doesn't have to be a doctor, could be an acupuncturist, could be a naturopath, but whoever you consult with professionally for guidance, check in with them first and make sure it's appropriate for you. And then in terms of supporting the kidneys, you mentioned nettle, didn't you? Did someone recommend nettle to you? Did you share that in your story, Sister
Yes,
Halima?
I put myself on
Okay.
mute. Yes. Hmm.
Okay. Yes. Yes. Nettle is a kidney tonic. So it's an herb that has an affinity for the kidneys. Kidney beans, interestingly,
I
are
know it's
also
a,
considered.
but it shows you that, like, when you look at the chart, it's like
Yeah.
whatever the organ is, like, yeah, it's so funny.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's really cute. Kidney, royal jelly, from honey is also considered a kidney tonic. Gotu kola, I believe. No, not gotu kola. It's goji berries are also a kidney tonic. So just, I would say look up kidney tonics and which ones do you enjoy the most and just figure out more excuses to enjoy more of them if you like them already, or if you're feeling curious, try something new. And then I would say the third thing is your minerals, minding your minerals. So investing in trace minerals or getting in a practice of maybe adding like Celtic sea salt or Himalayan sea salt. You can kind of do some research on your own with that, but really paying attention to the quality of your water. Does it have minerals in it? Don't drink distilled water. Preferably mineral water, spring water if you have access to it. But for many of us, we might need to supplement a little bit. So putting a little bit of pink salt or Celtic salt in your water could be supportive, or actually dropping liquid trace minerals in your water on a daily basis could be helpful too.
That's really good. I switched probably about 10 years ago to pink, the Himalayan salt.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was going through something. I forget what it was. I think they were concerned with, like, what are they called? Not keloids. I'm trying to think. Fibroids. They were concerned, like, with
Mm-hmm.
fibroids, and of course, I'm like, what are the natural ways?
Mm-hmm.
And so those were some of the things that were on the list. And I, like, wrote down, like, my list, or I was given, like, a list of foods that I can eat high in fiber, omega-3, fatty acids, salmon. I eat salmon once, maybe twice a week, and try to cook it different ways, like you said, to your taste. I'm trying to get up. We come from cultures that white rice. Like, if you don't got white rice on the plate, what you talking about? So
Yeah.
replacing it with brown rice, quinoa. So I'm in the working on it, right?
Yeah.
And just some of the other foods, like a lot of seeds, like cashews.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm heavy on cashews, but not supposed to eat that many, but cashews are good. Pumpkin seeds, almonds. There's so many, lentils. So
Mm-hmm.
things that are already, like, it's like these are what you should be eating, and so incorporating more of them into the diet. And magnesium came up a lot, as far as, like, in the conversations with my both my OBGYN and my general practitioner. So I wanted to say this really quickly, and just listen. I admire this sister from afar,
Mm-hmm.
but I want to share this with you, based on my experience. And doctors are amazing. I trust my doctor. I trust my OBGYN has been my OBGYN since my son, and my son is 26 years old. So alhamdulillah, yeah, she's been with me for a long time, alhamdulillah. So trust her like I trust myself. And so she was the one who
Mm-hmm.
gave me, like, the bulk of the information. Not that that's necessarily, like, some of it she put on the general practitioner. You have to go and, have this conversation here, but these are the things that I recommend. She's also Brazilian too. So
Mm-hmm.
she gave me a lot of like the natural versus the, traditional medicine. But one thing that I'll say is that their information that they're able to give is limited, I feel, based on what
Mm-hmm.
I've gotten from you just on being on here for an hour, just under an hour. Then my consultation with them, I was sitting with her for an hour, right? And running all the blood tests and, doing all of the things. And I would say 75% of the information and the resources that she gave me, you gave me right here. And this, we haven't even gotten into a course. So
Mm-hmm.
I would recommend, I myself, taking something like this because, like you said, it's coming from not only a, medicinal, avenue, it's coming from a holistic, it's coming
Mm-hmm.
from a non-traditional. And I think we need to go back into that because, being, people of an Abrahamic faith and going back to the prophetic tradition, a lot of these
Mm-hmm.
foods that are being recommended are the foods that are prophetic foods anyway. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you speak to that. So
Yeah.
the second question that was here, I think will, help you to tie all of this in together. But it was, what resources, practices, or daily rituals do you recommend for women to support their reproductive health? I think that we put a lot of emphasis, no shade to our younger sisters. Listen, my daughter is in this category, but we
Mm-hmm.
focus on women at childbearing age, and it's almost like you have no use if you are not able to reproduce. So if we can talk about, supporting reproductive health, so when we're in our childbearing years, but then, going into perimenopause and menopause, inshallah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, no, thank you. Thank you for everything that you shared. I'm glad this was of benefit to you, and people can only give what's in their toolbox, and they're doing their best with what they have. And many OBGYNs report that they have not spent any, if maybe a small amount of time or no time really on perimenopause and menopause until female doctors are going through it, that they're like, oh my goodness, what is this? So you're not the only one. This is something I've heard a lot, that many doctors don't really have the full toolkit for, and they're figuring it out on their own. So what I would say about reproductive health, really the best remedy for stress, any kind of stress, is rest. And really, we get into this conversation. I've seen it, all my life. How much sleep do you actually need? How you can get by on 5 hours of sleep, 4 hours of sleep, and it just keeps going lower and lower. The thing is, the female body, regardless of what actually happens, it by design, we're designed to nourish. And to nourish, to ovulate, to bring forth life, we need to be nourished. We need to be safe. And obviously, life comes forth in many stressful and wild circumstances, regardless. But ideally, we want to communicate safety to our bodies. So if we're thinking about protecting our reproductive health, we need to be very clear on how we are communicating safety to our body. Do I eat regularly throughout the day, or am I skipping meals? Do I sleep regularly, or am I all over the place, keeping really late hours and having these very erratic habits? What toxins in my life might be stressing me out? So something that gets overlooked is the chemical products that we put on our hair, in our makeup, our skincare. Check those ingredients. Take a look at the environmental working group. They'll let you know which of those ingredients can be carcinogenic, can be toxic, could be messing with your hormones, messing with your fertility. The other big factor with fertility is many times we're prescribed birth control for non-contraceptive reasons. So you have a painful period, or you're bleeding too much, you got acne, you got period pain here, take some birth control, even if you're not trying to avoid pregnancy. And what we're finding is that there have been women on birth control for the whole arc of their like peak reproductive years, those teen years where your body is trying to figure out how to do this reproduction, ovulation, monthly cycle thing, just totally silence our bodies. Instead of trying to figure out what's wrong and what's causing those problems, we're medicated with birth control, and we're now seeing the the result of that, right? We see micronutrient deficiencies after long-term birth control. We see gut dysbiosis, right? The microbiome in the gut gets disrupted. And we see fertility challenges as well. So I would say being really mindful of the toxins, being conscious about what kind of birth control you use, make sure it's not messing with your hormones, paying attention to your eating habits and your sleeping habits. And for my fellow perimenopausal sisters, do not think you cannot get pregnant in perimenopause, because you can. Even if you're not ovulating every single month, you may still be ovulating and you still very well can get pregnant. And sometimes what happens, it's almost like the body knows that this window of opportunity is closing. So sometimes an ovary will release more than one egg, right? Sometimes women in perimenopause will experience their libido peaking. It's almost like the body knows, like, we're running out of time to reproduce. So if you have not dialed into your cycles, tuned in, gotten to learn your fertility, don't think that you're totally over, right? There are many surprise babies that happen in the 40s. 50s less likely, but 40s for sure. So if you're in a monogamous relationship, pay attention. You can still get pregnant. Don't think fertility management is over just because you're over 40 or over 45. So I would say it's a great time to track your ovulation, or just have honest conversations in your relationship about how you're going to manage this possibility, because it ain't over until it's over, and you won't know it's over until it's over, right? Because menopause,
Until it happens. I'll share
right?
this really. I'll share
Uh-huh.
and someone just said it here. She said 45 years old was
45.
my last baby.
Okay.
I
Okay. Hear
know.
that louder.
I can count probably on two hands how many women I know over 40 or that were in perimenopause,
Mm-hmm.
uh, that had a baby during that. And there's
Mm-hmm.
a video. So I'll share the first one. My own sister, right?
Mm-hmm.
So all of us are over 40 except my baby sister. So
Mm-hmm.
she will join us in a couple of years, but the rest of us are in
Mm-hmm.
our 40s. And so, my sister, like, we have a niece. She was born on Malcolm X's birthday, May 19th. Okay,
That's
so
my
oh
son's
mashallah,
birthday.
listen, a whole baby, okay, and
A whole
she has
baby, not a
a whole
half, not a
baby, a
quarter.
whole thinking that she was good to go. A whole person has entered
Yeah.
the chat, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a video. I don't know the truth to it. There was, but I read the different comments. Again, it came up in preparation for this live. And a woman, she's 57, and she's talking to her girlfriend, and like her bestie, and her bestie's holding like the pregnancy test, and she's like, well, she said, I thought I was going through perimenopause or menopause. She said, what I'm gonna do with a baby at 57.
Hey,
Listen, it's the funniest thing, but
it ain't.
only funny because we can relate. It's
Yeah.
actually not funny. I feel her
Mm-hmm.
pain, because at 40, 46 going on 47, I could not imagine being pregnant again right now,
Yeah.
let alone 10 years from now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And
Yeah, I don't think.
I want to be sensitive to our sisters who are still on a conception journey. So
Yes.
yes, you can still, if you are over 40 and you have been trying to conceive and not yet, you need to follow Dr. Cleopatra of the Fertility and Pregnancy Institute. She has a high degree of success in supporting women holistically in having healthy full-term, developmentally, sound and healthy babies in that 43 plus. I would say not so much if you're 40, 43 plus, like, then you're really going to need to dial in some more support. And this question, is it true that babies born in 40s could have developmental disorders? Some of that is going to be epigenetic, meaning your lifestyle and the choices you make can impact how genes are expressed. So yes, it is true that sometimes egg quality and sperm quality is not optimal, but you can always improve your egg quality. You can't increase your egg supply, but your eggs are released in cycles. So you can always improve the eggs that are going to be released like 3 months from now. That's
Mhm.
within your capacity, but you can't just automatically spawn more eggs. We have a limited supply. So you definitely, if you're wanting to conceive in your 40s, you're definitely going to have to pay more attention to how you're eating, your stress, you and your partner, so that you're getting the best outcomes in light of like what's happening. So for our sisters who are over 40, this is not saying, there's no chance for you. And I know that that would be good news for them, right?
Mhm.
I know some of our sisters are waiting for their miracle babies to come, and
I
Allah
mean,
give them
I mean,
what's best for
I
them. I
mean,
mean, but for those of us who have bore our children and are content with what the Lord has given us, we need to be having some honest conversations about contraception moving forward. Don't assume that I'm too old now. Have some honest conversations, get to know your fertile cycles. You might need to track your fertility, check your basal body temperature, send me a DM if you need some resources, but don't just leave it to chance.
yeah.
Have some conversations about
Mhm.
that.
And there are so many resources for them as well, right? So
Yeah.
I follow quite a few women who are in their mid to late 40s who are either looking to get pregnant or who
Hmm.
already have had their baby.
Hmm.
And I know the one woman, I can't think of the name of of her channel, but the one woman, she wasn't trying.
Hmm.
And it happened, and then she lost. It wasn't a viable pregnancy,
Hmm.
and then she realized that she had a desire to have a
Hmm.
child, and so then
Oh.
her and her husband tried again, and
Hmm.
alhamdulillah, she was able to
Oh.
achieve that. She was, I think she might have been my age. She's in her
Hmm.
50s now, because I think her daughter's like 2 or 3 years old, so she might have been my age now when she conceived for the second
Hmm.
time,
Oh,
with that pregnancy. So
subhanAllah.
mashallah. So
Yeah.
definitely, du'as for anyone
Hmm.
who, I'm Jazakallah khair for spinning the block on that, because we're always making dua that whatever our desires are, whatever our duas are, that Allah answers them, and He answers them in the best of ways. Ameen. So yes, yeah, mashallah. This has been absolutely beautiful. I can spend the rest of this afternoon talking to you. And I just, want to preface this conversation with, just us operating in our feminine, and why I'm so adamant about speaking with women, and putting women at the forefront, versus, I have a lot of brothers that, oh, the information would be so amazing for the men. And I'm like, maybe in the future, but right now I really want to focus on my sisters, because there's so much that goes into us, building our businesses and just being productive, this side of life. And here's another thing that we've introduced into the conversation is how we are taking care of our bodies, how we're taking care of our womb. I think the word womb stood out for me when I was interacting with your account, even from the jump, from following you the first time. The word honored womb, I think is so beautiful, and just honoring that. And to me, the word, how it speaks to me is just honoring myself as a woman, honoring my feminine. And like I said, starting this journey almost 8 years ago, and very in my masculine, coming off of a corporate career, 20 years plus, like, having to compete, with men, white men specifically, and just all of that entailed. And now being able to own my own business and being able to own the space, and creating, like you said, a safe space for women to be able to come in and us to have honest conversations. Alhamdulillah, she said, agreed, honored womb and honoring my feminine. Mashallah. So any parting words before I share the hadith of the week and close out this session, inshallah?
Well, I have a series of perimenopause chats planned for this month. One will be about managing fertility throughout perimenopause. One will be about your evolving identity, and then also just the role of art expression and telling your story and your truth in this journey. So stay tuned for that. And I just look forward to meeting you in person. We're both from New York. Looking forward to connecting next time I'm in my city. as well as attending one of your amazing conferences or brunches. I love the programming that you're doing. I can't wait to be around to, be there for them, inshallah.
Inshallah, inshallah. And something, we focus on faith, family, wellness, and your finances, right? And so that I believe those are the four things that women care about, right? So we focus
Mhm,
on, you talk about safety. Finances provide us safety,
mhm,
information provides us safety, community provides us,
mhm,
that safety, and having everything that our family needs for us, like you said, we're nurturers, is paramount for us. So, in closing, please check out Chantel's book, Peaceful Periods. It's available on Amazon for those of you that are outside of the US. There it is. I love the cover, by the way.
Thank
Amazing.
you. It's also on bookshop.org. So if you're a
You just
bookshop, if you're,
announced that,
yes.
bookshop.org. So Amazon bookshop.org, and then they're able to get it into their own bookshops, right? They're
Hmm.
able to. Perfect. So if
Yes.
you think that, you purchase the book and you think that this would be beneficial for your local communities, get on it. All right. Because there's a lot of bookstores out there that do great work for the community. And imagine being able to go to the bookshelf and have Chantel's book on the bookshelf, to be able to take. And then her upcoming 8-week coaching program called Peaceful Perimenopause. Head to the link in her bio, inshallah. Also, would love to have you. She talked about our brunches. We have an upcoming brunch called Power Your Legacy in Cherry Hill. This is what we do there, right? It's a very organic conversation. So of course we have our agenda, but it's a very organic conversation. I'll tell you about the New York one. The New York one, we talked about marriage. There were a lot of married sisters there, but there were a lot of divorcees or single women that were there, and we're just talking about how the fact that they have ambition to be these entrepreneurs or entrepreneurial minded, meaning they work a 9 to 5, but they have other aspirations, what it takes, how to, develop that, and be able to be in partnership with someone. These are conversations that we need to have as a community, because being entrepreneurial minded or having ambition or wanting even to take care of yourself, right, in this stage here, perimenopause, does not negate the fact that you can get married, inshallah. Right.
Hmm.
And so building a thriving business through perimenopause and menopause is not only possible, but also empowering. Embracing womb wellness and managing hormonal health with intention can lead to greater success and fulfillment. We talk a lot about fulfillment here in both personal and professional realms. And my hadith of the week: the ties of the womb are connected to the throne of Allah. And you can find that in Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. This profound hadith reminds us of the deep spiritual significance of womb wellness and maintaining family ties. As we navigate the challenges of perimenopause and menopause, this connection reinforces the importance of caring for ourselves and our relationships, which can turn into our professional and personal lives and empower us in those areas, inshallah. So be sure to comment your biggest takeaway. Some of you share them right here on the live episode here. So share them in the comments, and then join me on the next Boss Hijabi-Preneur Podcast, the 24 of Laws of Power series. Who knew that having a powerful womb would be one of the laws of power? So again, tapping into our feminine. I pray that this was a benefit. Jazakallah khair,
Amen.
Sister Chantel. May Allah
Amen.
grant you great success
Amen.
in
And
your
you.
future endeavors and everything that you're doing. And may He continue to place ever increasing barakah in your work. And may it be of benefit both in this life and the next. Ameen.
Amen.
Jazakallah
Wayakum.
khair.
Amen for all of us. Amen. Wayak, no
Ameen wa
problem. Thank you
iyyakum.
so much.
Of course, anytime, inshallah. We'll have you back if you'd like,
Okay.
inshallah.
Yes,
Uh,
yes, please.
inshallah.
Assalamu
Wa alaikum
alaikum.
salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and thank you.
Thank you.